Welcome to the St. Stephen's Community House Crystal Methamphetamine e-learning series. This is Module 4 of 4. This module is about de-escalation and how to recognize, understand, and respond to challenging situations.
It is important to remember that not everyone that uses psychostimulants will become aggressive, and not all aggression is necessarily related to psychostimulant use. People have genuine reasons for being angry. It can be a healthy emotion, that is a self-protective factor. We know that stimulants reduce the capacity of the frontal lobe of the brain. That means a person's ability to assess risk for themselves can be compromised, resulting in self-protective behavior that can present as aggression. And not all triggers are the same. This makes it challenging to know what to do when. There are triggers that can come from the specific effects of the drug, specific effects of intoxication or withdrawal, exaggerated response to a real event in a person's life or trigger in the immediate environment, fear or paranoia, psychostimulant-related psychosis, and acute intoxication. Lack of staff training in recognizing and responding to escalating hostile behavior, a seeming or actual long wait for service, or lack of communication, a range of other environmental stresses, for example, noise, bright lights, aggressive behavior of others in the space.
Setting yourself up for success in your space. What to do before an escalation. Take a look at your physical space. Is there a lot of background noise, like other staff, street noise, etc.? Have you reduced it as much as you can? Is the space clear of a lot of excess storage, furniture, or other hazards? Are the entrances and exits clear? Is there easy access to a phone for folks to use? And is there a quiet space to de-escalate a person when needed, with minimal to no stimuli? Setting yourself up for success in a service before an escalation. Are there long wait times? How do you communicate about and with people during those wait times? Are there medical staff on site who can assess psychotic symptoms? If you know that someone is likely to escalate or experiences psychosis regularly, what is being done to preventatively support this person? Do they have an acquired brain injury, developmental challenge, or a history of trauma? You can do risk assessments, including clinical assessment of participants who are known to have psychotic illness, so you can develop individualized plans.
Responding to escalation. There are certain guiding principles that are key to understand. 1. Safety is paramount. 2. We need to recognize that often the reasons for anger or frustration are valid. How do we listen and respond sensitively to concerns as they present? 3. We need to understand that we are responsible for managing the situation. Is it realistic to expect an intoxicated person to calm down just because we ask them to? 4. We can't assume someone will become violent if they are escalating. 5. Assess levels of escalation. When de-escalation isn't effective, police assistance should be sought.
Signs that someone might be escalating. Module 3 is all about psychosis and paranoia. Have you seen it yet? If not, check it out. People experiencing psychosis may have hallucinations through touch, taste, or smell, delusions that are fixed false beliefs that don't shift even when presented with evidence to the contrary, thought disorder, confusion or where concentration is difficult, disorganized or bizarre behavior. Because of these symptoms, a service user may feel anxious or scared, or may act upon commands given by auditory hallucinations or lash out to protect against perceived threats. Is there a mental health clinician able to conduct an assessment? Can you develop an individualized plan for specific service users that you know experience psychosis? People can experience any of these symptoms individually and might not lead to aggression or hostility. Don't assume that any one of these signs means someone is actually escalating. Some behaviors are an attempt to regulate emotions and thoughts often developed during childhood trauma. The more you can get to know someone outside of an escalation, the better it is. Once you know someone uses crystal methamphetamine, Ask them about what they think they might need if using. You can consider creating a service-wide risk plan for individuals if well known to service. For example, if a person is known to use psychostimulants, where possible, ensure that they're not left waiting too long for service, or consider designating a quiet, safe room for folks to wait in.
Responding to an escalation, your own emotions. It's critical to explore on your own time what your fear response is about for you. What are your own experiences that contribute to your fear? Be aware of your own personal limitations, tendencies to retaliate, argue, or otherwise become defensive. Sometimes a person who is escalating deflects their own sense of vulnerability by detecting de-escalators' vulnerabilities and focusing on it. Being aware of these things will help you maintain control when your fear response comes up. And what helps you when you're scared? Responding to an escalation, your own emotions. Remember to breathe. Do not respond, call for assistance, and clear the room if you don't feel confident or capable of managing the situation. The person is in an enclosed space with no exit. The person is already too hostile, unstable, fearful, or intoxicated to respond. If the person is threatening harm to you, to other workers or bystanders, person has a weapon. It is okay to trust your intuition. If you feel that a threat is real, even if it turns out not to be, that is okay. De-escalation strategies. Think of a time when you saw an attempt at de-escalation that wasn't successful. What went wrong? Now think of a time when you saw a successful de-escalation. What happened? What made it successful?
De-escalation strategies, the space. Scan your immediate vicinity for alarms, phones, exits, bystanders, and potentially dangerous items. Clear the space. Try where possible to ensure that the agitated person has an exit route. In the event that a 911 call needs to be made, it is still safer for the person to be able to flee the scene without causing harm. What you can do: stay calm, maintain open body posture, always approach from the front or side. Monitor eye contact, not too much as it can appear threatening, or too little as it implies indifference or untrustworthiness. Ensure that safe distance is maintained. Step back if in doubt. Mirror body language to show empathy and connection. Sit with a person who is seated. Walk with a person who is pacing. Reduce the stimuli in the room. Find a quiet space to talk. Use an even, calm tone of voice, even if the person's voice becomes loud or aggressive. Keep your questions simple and to the point. Tune into your fear. Tap in and tap out of the situation as you need to. Don't be ashamed about doing so. It's better to know your limits.
What you can say. You are safe here. No one here will hurt you. I'm here to help. Tell me more about what's happening for you. I want to understand more about what you're saying. If you need time before you talk to me, that's fine. I can suggest a few things that might help. You won't always feel like this. It's important not to infantilize people who are experiencing distress, but consider this. How would you approach a child who is angry and yelling and you could tell who is afraid? You would express concern, show empathy and compassion, legitimize their concerns, and respond appropriately.
What are the current policies for de-escalation and conflict in your space? Do they need to be updated to reflect approaches for stimulant-associated aggression? Know beforehand who the lead of the situation is going to be. Discuss it with your team. Work in pairs and know who your partner is beforehand. If the person has to leave, maybe alert relevant services. If this is a person who is street involved, could it be worth calling a street outreach team? Do you have a de-escalation kit on hand with things like cool packs, cigarettes, bottles of water?
What not to do. Avoid saying no if possible. Saying I can't do that, can't give that to you right now. Argue. That isn't right because. Threaten. If you do that again, you can't come back here, or you have to stop. Don't make promises you can't keep. Avoid blocking exits, even if you have called 911 or police. Tell people to relax or calm down. Raise your voice. Take things personally. For example, people might call you names, but it isn't about you. You might be a trigger for someone, all your skills aside. Try to restrain someone or turn your back on them. Make too much or too little eye contact. And try to avoid how you were feeling. Jordan's story. As somebody who both uses crystal meth and worked as a street outreach worker in the crystal meth project, there were a number of experiences that I had that reminded me of the ways that we can de-escalate and treat people fairly. So, number one, people who use crystal meth aren't more difficult to communicate with than anyone else. Maybe we talk a little bit fast, maybe we stumble over our words, but the important thing is to listen, and listen attentively. I allow people's free expression. Sometimes that means listening to some pretty out there stuff, but really, who is it harming? I allow people to be where they're at. I don't try and make them behave the way I think that they should behave. I listen to people's grievances. Sometimes a person might be quite angry or vocal, and they have reason to be. Maybe they're being treated unfairly, and it's important to acknowledge that.
After a de-escalation. If de-escalation is not effective, call the police. If de-escalation is effective, the person may feel a lot of shame and embarrassment. Negotiate a plan to enact any actions that were agreed upon. Reinforce individual rights, responsibilities, processes for communication, grievances, and advocacy.
We are grateful to the Toronto Central LHIN and University Health Network for funding this project.